I'm going to call the meeting to order.
Okay, we should probably get this.
Will you please call the roll?
Gandy,
Yes.
Esty. Yes. Toohill.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Anderson. Yes. Flournoy.
Here.
Ham.
Yes.
All right, we got a full house. Are there any changes to the agenda? If not, we'll go to the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes of the October 10th, 2022 council meeting. Approval of the October 14th, 2022 payroll in the amount of $121,913.22. Approval of the June finance report. Approval of the July finance report. Approval of the August finance report. Resolution authorizing employment in the Park and Recreation Department. Resolution of promotion and employment in the Street Department. Acceptance of the Carnegie Museum Board minutes. Acceptance of the Library Board minutes. Acceptance of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee minutes for August and September. Approval of liquor license for Hy-Vee Club Room. Approval of total claims in the amount of $560,039.60. We had one claim greater than $75,000 in the amount of $356,785 for the Iowa Communities Assurance Pool.
Move to approve consent agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
All the bills look okay, so I recommend approving.
Okay. I had one quick question. Were you able to get the organizational chart from the library?
What's not, we asked and.
Why does the
Yeah,
September 26th agenda keep
Okay.
going up?
So I had asked Aaron in the library board meetings, it said they had approved a new organizational chart, and I thought it was worth council seeing that. So when he gets that, hopefully Aaron will share it with you. So, okay, please take the roll.
Gandy.
Yes, except I abstained from approval of the October 10th minutes, and that I was not present at the last city council meeting.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Anderson. Yes. Toohill.
Yes.
Esty. Yes. I about did it.
All righty. Under public forum and appearances, we have our emergency management coordinator, Brett Farrell. He is going to kind of give an annual report on what's happened this last fiscal year and a couple things that he's seeing going forward, and our event in November. We'll touch on that, I'm sure.
You did want me to come up here, right?
Yes.
So, well, thanks for having me. It's been a while since I've been in front of this council, and Mayor had asked me to come just give a review of kind of give you a little bit insight of what emergency management does. So I'll just kind of go over maybe the last year and highlight some stuff. Just want to say that emergency management in all the organizational things that we do works on a federal fiscal year. So October 1st through September 30th is when all of our exercising, our training, our organizational plan through Homeland Security for our grants are all on that. The only thing that's not is our budget, which is the same as you guys' budget, which ends June 30th. So just want to clarify that when I go through some of this stuff. You know, emergency management, I'm going on 8 years now, or 7.5 years of doing this, and it just gets busier and busier for us. And I think the pandemic was one of those things that opened the eyes to everybody that, hey, we do have an emergency management coordinator. He is a resource for the county. He does know a lot of people around, and he can get us what he wants. So it's gotten busier, getting called out for to do more speaking, to go help whoever it is. So I'm just going to kind of highlight, and you guys can stop me and ask me any questions. So training is always a huge part of emergency management. It doesn't matter what county you're in. It's required by FEMA and the Homeland Security to do at least 24 hours of training a year. 12 of those hours are dictated by the feds. The other 12 are what we as a commission sign off of to make sure that we're getting that training. So some of the training I've been through, mass fatality training, I think that was mentioned. Hazmat ops refresher, which we hosted and paid for. I went to a seminar or training in Ames back in September. It's called the TIMS conference, which is traffic incident management. And it's put on by the DOT, emergency management, state patrol, DOT, sheriff's office, and some law enforcement over there, and some fire. And basically, the conference was about how the DOT and how emergency management, how we get more involved with roadside accidents and keeping our first responders safe. And we've all known that as much as the lights get brighter on vehicles now, it was interesting, more responders are getting hit on the highways, more workers are getting hit just because of texting and driving and distractions. So we now know that we can rely on the DOT a little bit more to put up signage and stuff. We had an accident, I think it was last May, a bad one out on the 4 lanes where we responded and we had 2 people trapped and we landed 2 helicopters on the 4 lanes, shut them both down for 2.5 hours. My role in that was on a fire truck as a captain or an officer, and then I switched gears to emergency management while I was there to make phone calls to DOT to get them out there to make sure they were helping us with traffic control. So it was an interesting conference. I'm glad I went, learned a lot of stuff, talked to a lot of people. And then just recently, I was at the Iowa Homeland Security Conference. It's an annual conference, and had some interesting, which is always a good conference, some really interesting stuff. One of the best classes was a guy up in Madison County. Fairfield members had the bad tornadoes that killed people this year, and he was a speaker, and he talked about how that all came together and the resources and the aftermath and the importance of having the right people to talk to the media, which I know, but a lot of people don't understand that and how that kind of helps. So that was interesting. There's been more training. I'm not going to list them all, but so we also are required to do exercises per year, and we have to do exercise reports of what we did, and we turn those into Homeland Security. Did an exercise in Henry County. It was an active intruder tabletop. We did an exercise in Wapello County. It was Wapello County, Henry County, Johnson County, and myself. And what we did was they had an animal shelter down there that was having to redo floors. So they called Tim up in Wapello County and said, hey, do you have any place to put these 20-some dogs while they redo the floors? Henry County's actually got a animal rescue trailer, so it's Johnson County. So we took those down there and we used it as an exercise for us. And we set up the tents, the kennels, and everything else, and moved the animals into those for 2 days, and then we went and took everything back down. So the part about exercise that's good is knowing that you have those resources, knowing how to do that. And you think, well, what are you going to do with something like that? Well, any disaster, you could need places to take animals just like you do people. So that's the reason we do exercise, to play with the equipment and make sure that we know what's out there all the time. Also did a tabletop line of duty death. I'm not going to get too much detail about that, but it is a process when you have a firefighter, law enforcement in your community that unfortunately loses their life. Some of the responses I have been on, and I'm just going to say this because my wife knows how busy it's been. I've been called out 3 out of the last Sundays for incidents. 2 of those were search and rescues. One of them was a hazmat incident. So yes, emergency management is on call 24/7. I think most people know that, but when the call comes, we go and we want to go help. So also one of those was a severe weather event where we had storms coming in. The prediction center had emailed us and texted us early in the morning and said, this is going to be bad, people. This is going to be tornadoes. This is what's going to happen. I think it was September 18th. So I just went in the wall center about 4 o'clock, helped dispatch, updated everybody what was coming, and sat there until about 9 o'clock. And fortunately, it didn't get as bad here as they said it was going to get, but the tornadic possibility that day was at 10%, which we haven't seen in this county for quite a while. Community-wise, I continue to meet with community partners discussing, preparedness for the county. And this was going on well before the pandemic. We were meeting with nursing homes, care facilities, places like that, exercising and learning how, if we have to move patients to another facility, how we do that, who we call, and things like that. That was a couple of things that we hit on. People involved with that, obviously public health is a great resource there. JCHC, the long terms, the park views, the Sunnybrook's, the Prestige, whatever, and the assisted livings, EMS, law enforcement, and fire. We still do that on a monthly basis. Sometimes it's not fire and law enforcement, it's more for the vulnerable facilities. Because those are the ones that in a disaster are going to be the ones that are going to need the most help the soonest because of just, the patients they have there. One thing the governor came out with, everybody probably knows, is a school safety initiative where They're requiring schools to do school assessments on safety. This all came about after the Uvalde thing. And once a school does that, they're available to apply for a loan for $50,000 per school building to update their safety stuff in those school buildings. The assessments were last week and this week. It was put on by the contractor for the state of Iowa called Tetra Tech. High school, well, I think it was Thursday, middle school was Friday, Washington, Pence for today. Part of that initiative is they said you have to include law enforcement and emergency management in these assessments, which was good for us. So I've been busy with the school assessments at all 4 of the schools. Continue to serve on the county safety committee, which meets once a month. We met with MSAE faculty and staff to discuss their safety protocols. Dave and I did a couple months ago. So some of the projects, we talked about the siren upgrade, or you guys did last spring. The sirens in Fairfield weren't too bad. They had battery issues. The ones in the outlying towns had bigger issues with the radios and stuff, and that was about a 2-month-long project, and we just got tired of, well, for one, them not working intermediately, so we replaced all the electronics in them, put narrowband radios in there, and that solved the problem. So yeah, they're all modified and working. Moving forward, as a project of mine is, we need to get those sirens, I feel, automated, and meaning it doesn't go through dispatch, because in severe weather, as good as our dispatchers are, and they're the greatest people in the world, they don't always, that's just one more thing for them to have to log off and go over to a console and push buttons and try to figure out how, if they're not doing it that often. So there is a program out there. The guy that fixed all of our sirens can upgrade it and do it automated from their office. There's a cost to it, but part of that cost is a maintenance agreement where they're online, so they can look at our sirens anytime they want to. They can see if their battery's dead, if they're whatever, if they're not working, if they're not going to spin. Takes it out of our hands. It's set off by the National Weather Service. It triangulates where it's supposed to be. So if Packwood's got something bearing down on the one Lockridge isn't going to go off. Right now, they're all county-wide. It's about $25,000 plus a $1,600 annual maintenance fee. If you've heard, emergency management bought 2 new trailers. One's an enclosed 14 by 7.5 trailer. It'll be used to store resources or supplies such as blankets, cots, whatever we need to be able to deploy to an incident and have on that trailer. And then we bought an LED light tower trailer, which can also be deployed for any incident we might have, including law enforcement, search and rescues. Anybody's welcome to use it. It has a generator on it, and that's how it's powered. And total cost on those were $23,980. Both of those were bought completely by grants that I wrote, so it didn't come out of our account. 2 last things, and then I'll open up if anybody's got any short questions. I know Aaron told me I had 3 minutes. I think I went over that. We are having an exercise, or tabletop exercise, November 17th. It's called a recovery support function exercise. So the state of Iowa has now tasked emergency management with a support function for recovery. Normally, our overall comprehensive emergency plan, I think that question was asked at we do have an overall comprehensive plan that's made up of 15 different emergency support functions. So we study those, and we have to update those, 4 of those every year, including our Hazmat 10, which is the big one. Now we're going to have to do a recovery support function. The ESFs are more planning and preparedness. This one's a recovery. It's a 5-year plan. The first year is going to be solely kind of hitting on the economic part of that recovery, and that's why on the 17th there'll be mayors, elected officials, investment people, banks, large business, small business, people in the community that would be a big part of the financial economic recovery on the disaster. So that's November 17th. I haven't got the invitations out. Those should go up by the end of the week. And Alert Iowa, and I know everybody's aware of what happened the other day. Alert Iowa was rolled out. Well, actually, Alert Iowa has been in place. The contractors is RAVE. That was rolled out last year in the summer, July of 21, I believe. That took over for WINS. And when that came out, we put it out there on the radio, we put it in the paper, we tried to get it out on, it was on my Facebook page, which is Jefferson County Emergency Management does have a Facebook page. And if anybody wants to follow that, if there's severe weather, winter weather, anything going on in this county, it's going to be on that page. So, but if you want to get weather notifications, you need to go to alert.iowa.gov and sign up under Jefferson County and put your phone number in there to get those. They're not only for weather alerts, they're for single messages that we want to put out like they did the other night for the manhunt. We've done it before for water leaks when they couldn't find it and it was just draining our tower, so we put it out there on a one-time alert through that system. So it's very important that people get signed up for that. And the last project someday it's going to need to be done is we're going to have to put an outdoor warning siren in Vedic City at a price tag of well over $100,000. That's kind of my short. I mean, that was a long. I know, but
On November 17th, what's the time?
8 o'clock. It will be held at the Cambridge building at the fairgrounds.
Okay,
I've reserved that.
great. Thank you very much. And we really appreciate everything that you do, Brett. You know, we know that's a lot more than what's there. And you live it and breathe it 24/7, and we appreciate that. And I do encourage people to get signed up for that alert because, you know, that was in my neighborhood, so to speak, last week, and I was really appreciative of that alert, and it was important.
It wasn't far from my home.
Right.
Could you repeat the alert information again, please?
It's alert.iowa.gov. Is that right? I've said it so many times I probably got it backwards, but yep, alert.iowa.gov. And then it's a simple drop down. You can just go to the map and say Jefferson County and hit Jefferson, then it'll come up and say, have you opt in with your phone number. And once you get into it, you can pick what you want the warnings for. So if you don't want a blizzard warning, you don't have to check that. If you want a tornado warning, you check that. Severe thunderstorm warning, check that. All the other stuff that come out as a message you're going to get if you're signed up for the app anyway, such as what we just did the other night, or what dispatch did. I didn't have anything to do with that because I was out.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions? All righty. Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it very much. Okay, so we'll move on to resolution, action items, and ordinances. The first action item is consideration of a social media policy. Did I spit that out?
Well, you got it, though.
And I think basically what I saw was there was one change, correct?
We made it, it's mostly based off of the police department's policy, but we made it more focused towards city government rather than just the police department. We talked at one change I recall is we were focusing on the Facebook page where we weren't going to do a lot of comments or anything, just information. It talks a little bit about employees, if they're commenting on Facebook and representing the city, that's not necessarily covered by free speech. So it just gives us a little bit of a ability to kind of work through that process a little bit.
Great. Okay, so any other questions anybody has?
Motion to approve the social media policy.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve the social media policy. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Esti? Yes. Toohill?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Okay, unanimously approved for the social media policy. Next is consideration of the Great Places grant application, and I invited our former mayor, Ed Malloy, and our CVB director, Terry Baker, to talk about that grant that's due November 2nd. So if you guys would come up and...
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. And I'm sure you're generally familiar with the Iowa Great Places program. I think they're in their 18th year. They're going into their 18th year. It was started in 2005. And in 2005, there were 3 communities that qualified to be a great place. Fairfield applied that year, but was not chosen among probably 150 different cities that applied. But the good news and the good fortune there was that in the first year, there was no money awarded. In the second year, in 2006, when Fairfield was awarded, we were one of 6 cities in the state. Out of 132, we received $500,000 in grant money that we partnered and pooled along with some of our own resources to leverage into about $1.5 million worth of projects. And we've continued to have that designation, and then several years ago, they updated the rules about great places. There are currently 42 of them within the state, and they just want to make sure that everybody has fulfilled their original goals and is continuing to develop their communities even further. So they had a redesignation program. And this came out in 2018. Fairfield was alerted that we would have to apply again and be redesignated. At the time, I wrote the language for the update, reported on the things that we had accomplished, and then we received that designation. And in 2019, we were notified. Terry and I went up to a small conference, and they talked about the grant opportunities that were available again for new designees. So there is a pool of money of about $1 million this year that's available to match great places for new grant opportunities and programs. So at the time, wrote a grant proposal, but really didn't have enough time to get the partners and people involved to make it a viable grant. You have a 5-year window, so we're in year 3. And we would be funded in year 4, so we just thought this would be a time, and had a good conversation with Mayor Boyer about resurrecting that and doing some of the things that we had planned to do in the downtown during that period of time. So the grants at the time, in 2006 when we received them, they were basically broadly utilized within the community. We did something with Masden Barnes and something with Trails and something with Sustainable Living Center. Our streetscape was done largely with a lot of that money. But now they are asking communities to focus more narrowly. So they really want to see something in the downtown that represents what they call creative placemaking, a place where creative people, artists, and historical elements are highlighted in your downtown. So we feel that a new grant can tie together cultural assets, cultural district, and the designation of a creative place. And we had a number of things that we've gone through in terms of projects that we wanted to re-enliven, bring back to the community to see if we could finish them because they were important elements. One of them is the wayfinding project. So that was something the city participated in along with the CVB to basically come up with a plan to orient visitors as they come into the community, and Terry will speak a little bit more about that. The grant is a one-to-one match, so we are here tonight to ask for matching funds towards the grant. We had a good meeting with Doug and the Ways and Means Committee about this the other day. The grant itself would cover wayfinding. It would cover some enhanced elements at Petra's Park, and also a parking lot at the corner of B Street and Broadway, which would be upgraded and enhanced also to tie in to the work that is being done in the old Armory building, which again is going to create something very unique in Fairfield that people would want to travel to. All of these elements total about $350,000 to $370,000. We have an indication from, or a commitment from the business owner for the Armory to contribute $100,000 towards the project. So that would go towards the city's match. And so there, it would leave probably about $125,000 for a city contribution, and that would be a max, because we don't have everything finalized in terms of pricing at this point yet. Now, one caveat, we did have 2 representatives from the Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs down here this past week. They reviewed our pre-application. In the pre-application, we had 2 parking lot upgrades. The other one that we'd all love to see on Washington and Court Street. But they really said that that's not what they're kind of interested in or in the business in, is funding, the reconstruction of parking lots. But all of the other enhancement elements, they would be, thrilled to help us accomplish. They consider, Fairfield a very, very strong representation of the idea of a great place and a creative place. So they really want to see us get this, and I'll have Terry talk about a couple of the other elements that we'll discuss.
So when creating a place, one of the most important things is that we try to create a place that people want to live in, that makes them excited to live there, and also move around easily. So wayfinding is a big part of this project because we want to be able to direct people in the correct direction. When we live here, we know where everything is, but when people come into town, they don't know how to find things easily. Our convention center, for example, is one of those things that just set off a little bit for that if somebody doesn't know where it is, they have a little challenge finding that. But also wayfinding is kind of that greeter that says, you're welcome here, and we're going to show you where to go and where to find things in our community. So wayfinding is a big piece of what we're planning to do. That wayfinding will be incorporated not only through an extended downtown area, but also in the parking lot area too, so that people know as soon as they park their car, they know they can be oriented. Our ultimate goal is that we start connecting sort of a creative corridor throughout town, where we have the Armory, we have the Convention Center, we have our downtown, we have Petrus Park. All of these areas are gathering places for the public, and we want people to know where those are so we can envision at some point in time having festivals or having concerts or different things happening throughout town where people are navigating throughout the entire area. So wayfinding is a big piece of that. But we also have a piece of embellishing the downtown parking lot, the one particularly on B and Broadway. And included in that is to use some elements that are found in Petra Park. For example, the concrete planters, that idea of coming in there with the same kind of plantings. And we're also working with an artist to see if we can have mosaics added to the face of that would represent things out of Fairfield history, things out of Fairfield's culture, and also show sort of that artistic element that really is part of Fairfield's character. Lighting is also included in that project, as well as a repeat of the entry trellis that's at Petra Park. So kind of repeating some of those design elements that we could start moving those throughout the downtown. Speaking of Petra Park, one of the things that we've noticed there that really needs to happen to make that a usable space is there is a need for sun control in that area. And what was indicated from the gentlemen who were here last week is that anything we do on that basis has to be something that's permanent. You putting up temporary solar blinds, that sort of thing, solar shades, is not going to qualify for this grant. So we have some concepts that we're working on with that to create some shade to make the area more useful. Lighting is also another issue there, and we're looking at lighting that would be added into those tall planters so that it would just give some soft light into the area and not make it so dark, especially this time of year when it gets dark earlier, so that the space becomes more usable. So that's a summary of kind of what we're looking at for this grant.
So, go ahead, Ed.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, regarding the 125,000, 25,000 we talked about coming from lost local option sales tax, and up to 100,000 coming from the interest that we're going to be earning on the CD that we just invested. So that's going to generate about $168,000, and it's not allocated to anything right now, so that we're not, that's new income and new revenue that we have that we thought would be a good place to use those funds. So what questions, additional questions? Any additional questions?
What's the time frame?
So it would be a 2023 construction. So, and I think as long as we were done by the end of the year,
Okay.
so we should be able to get these kinds of elements, constructed in good weather at any time.
So the grant has to be in on November 2nd. Terry, do they make a decision in December, January? What's the time frame for
I
that,
think it's in December.
that they decide? Okay, so we would know first of the year whether we got it. And I think another thing is if we put in a grant this year and we don't get it, we know that will help us refine anything we do for next year.
Right.
If we did decide to make another opportunity next year.
Yeah, and I'd just say we've already, we submitted an initial letter, kind of a pre-application. And from that pre-application, even though they didn't like the 2 parking lots, they still invited us to do a full application. So we feel pretty confident. They really want to see some of the funds go to a community like Fairfield, knowing that we'll use them well. And we're going to take their advice in terms of what the framing of that application should be. We'll do that over the next couple of days and finish the grant writing up for next week.
Yeah, we're still waiting on some detailed proposals, so we have better numbers to put in the budget, and that's why we're asking for up to 125. And I just want to also mention just the vision of the original 2 parking lots is, in my opinion, or it is my belief that once the old armory is up and running, that it's going to have some effect throughout our community. We're going to have new visitors, and certainly we want that parking lot to be elevated with that. But we also see that the other parking lot would also gain us additional parking, as well as an opportunity to use the community center there, in addition to larger events that we might have, musical events that could be
That really would be beneficial.
in multiple places. It could be, get your information here. We don't know exactly, but
Right.
I did talk to one of the board members there, and they got the vision, and so, I'm hoping within the next couple years or whatever, we can also get that other parking lot finished up and also provide a smoother surface. There are some parking spaces right there at the community center that, our older folks that are going there. It is gravel, a little bit harder to navigate, so it'd be nice to have that upgraded for them as well.
I think the community center has really worked very diligently at trying to move forward in the community. I think it's turning out to be, since it's no longer the senior center,
Yeah.
I think it's made a lot of difference with people's attitude about going there for something. So I truly think both of the parking lots are really crucial. I mean, that one on Broadway has been an enigma for me because it wasn't just a parking lot, it was a permanent parking lot. I remember at one point when, there would be vehicles parked there with grass that had been growing up quite a long time. And I mean, just to get people to understand it's a parking lot, not a permanent parking lot for vehicles.
Doug, you want to share anything from Ways and Means?
Well, we thought this was a good idea. Anytime you can get $1 for $1, I think we should take advantage of it. So this ties in with the existing architecture we have at Petrus Park, and it improves that location at B and Broadway. I think it's a good idea. Judy and I both recommend approving up to $125,000. The money's undesignated, so it's not a burden on the budget. And they may come in less than that, but no more than $125,000.
What is the plan for the old Armory building? I don't even know. Is that going to be an event space or?
It's an event space. It's a live performance recording studio, and they'll be able to record there. They'll be able to do videos there. There's a little cafe planned, a art gallery, a teaching space.
Wow.
Do they have live performances at all?
Yes, they plan not only live musical performances, but also educational things like bringing in an educational speaker on a particular topic. That's
It'd be a nice anchor for the other end of the town versus the convention center in Petrus Park.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the things that his plan is he wants that to be the premier place for somebody to come and do a live recording. So have a crowd there and then record songs, have the people to come in and do recordings there. So
Dance floor?
there's probably quite a bit of space there.
Yeah, and with his contribution of $100,000, you're really getting 3 to 1 on this grant. So it's a good opportunity.
What is the total? We're talking 125 from the city, 100 from him is 225, and an additional what from the?
225
Depends on
from
how
the
we
state.
write the grant on, which we haven't really finally decided on yet.
Okay.
So we have different elements and prices. So, for instance, the wayfinding signage is probably going to be $70,000, and then we'll be adding planters and landscaping and lighting and all of those different elements. So we're going to get their advice as to whether we pull the parking lots out of the specific application and apply for all of the other enhancement elements, or whether we lump them all together, but the math is going to end up about the same.
You mentioned, you threw out a number of 300 and something, I think, in the beginning.
350.
350.
Right.
So it'd be,
which includes the paving of the parking lot.
okay, so it'd be 125 from us, 100 roughly from the Armory, and
125
from the.
Great Places.
Okay,
Yes.
Great Places.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd make the motion that we approve this request up to $125,000 for the Great Places application.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve this up to $125,000. Any other discussion?
Should we specify in the motion where the money's coming from?
Yes.
So I'd amend the motion to reflect $25,000 out of the lost account and $100,000 from accrued interest on our CD at Iowa State Bank. Investments.
Great, thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions, please call roll.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Esty.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All righty, next action item, consideration of amendment number 3 to the engineering services agreement with French Reniker Associates for sanitary sewer conveyance step 2 project, and Steve is here to discuss that.
Probably think I'm crazy. I told you last time we were done with this project. I am good. But what this amendment is related to is some record-keeping things in the city's GIS. In speaking with Melanie and Sean, our original agreement had updating the city's GIS with the new step sewer improvements, but it was a pretty basic amount of work. We're going to include the new manholes and the new pipes was all we had budget to do. And in talking with Melanie and Sean, there's a lot more records that they would like to have attached to the GIS. And fortunately, we ended up under budget in some other areas on this contract. So what we're doing is just moving money around so that we can access it in our agreement here. And what you're getting is there's sewer videos of all of the sewer main that was installed. That will all be linked to the GIS. We're going to add in all of our records of where the laterals were installed. And then we've also in our contract is to prepare PDF record drawings of the project. And that is essentially done, but what this will do is we'll link each sheet to each specific pipe. So you can go in and click on the computer and it'll pull up the drawings for that section of pipe. And then we're also going to include all the permanent sewer easements into the GIS system, which were required for the project. So that's it, unless you have any questions for me.
So does that mean this project's almost done?
Well, we have to be done by the end of the year because that's when the money goes away. So, yeah. Yeah. We're getting very close.
Motion to approve the amendment for the engineering services agreements with French Reniker.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Anderson, second by Rasmussen. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This isn't, is this not on here? Did we take that off?
GIS means
earlier?
this, correct? That's GIS.
Yes. That's right. Okay, next resolution, consideration of authorization of installation and maintenance of traffic signs for the regulation of traffic control.
So we had a request from a citizen on East Madison near the intersection with B Street. Not Madison. Monroe. I told you Madison in my text message, Jason, but it needs to be Monroe. And they were. With that being a T intersection, there's actually a fair amount of traffic that's going straight through, that there has been some close calls and stuff. And our street superintendent went and looked at the intersection, watched it for a while, and saw what that neighborhood person was asking about. So the street superintendent is recommending putting up 2 additional stop signs, turning that into a 3-way stop. Really?
Questions?
So is that, the process is that somebody calls, and I'm just curious going forward, so someone calls and says, there's a problem, and then we survey it, and then?
We review the situation and, looking at sight distances, speeds. I do also understand that stop signs don't mean people are going to stop, but that does cover us. It allows us, we as a city have put in measures to help that situation. If people don't follow the stop signs, that's another issue. I also look at the traffic, and if the traffic in one direction, like we've talked about with Second and Broadway, if the traffic in one direction is much larger than the traffic in another direction, the 3- and 4-way stops really don't work. And what we saw on this one is the traffic in all directions are pretty equal. There's actually a fairly large amount of traffic coming from the west eastbound, well, east and northbound. And there's already a stop there, but there's still issues in the area. But yes, and so we review the situation, and if we feel that something's necessary, we can bring it to public safety, and if you want to refer this to public safety, but this, I thought we would just bring this here, save Katie a public safety meeting. I got enough other things for her to. I got enough other things for her to cover. And deer.
I said that. Cats and deer.
Is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Moved by Anderson,
Second.
second by Rasmussen. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Approved unanimously. Next resolution, consideration of amended request for public records form. Are you going to talk about this, Rebecca?
I can. So I was at conference last week and learned that as of July 1, the regulations, the law had changed. That normally what we do is anything that takes more than, or the first 15 minutes are free if we have to look up public records for a request. The law has changed where we can't charge for the first 30 minutes. So that got changed on the form.
It's a state law.
Yep. Chapter 22.
No, I believe I'm just
or
surprised with
something.
this.
Yep.
That's if they're handy.
How often did we get a request?
On
average, a month.
One every other month, every
Yeah,
3
I was gonna
months.
say, I didn't
It's
think it was
not
very
a real
much.
big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, so who wants to make the motion to be in compliance with the state law?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Gandy. It was moved by Toohill. No other discussion? Seeing none, go ahead and call the roll.
Toohill.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Ordinance 1219, this is the third and final reading for the snow and ice control policy. And I will open the public hearing. I assume nobody here wants to talk about that? Okay. We just have our radio and our radio guy and Steve here, so, okay, I'll close the public hearing. Any discussion from council?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Anderson to
Second.
approve. Second by Toohill. No other discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Anderson.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Under the mayor's report, last week, the chamber had the manufacturers luncheon. It was a really, it was a nice event. They had almost 100 people there. And so I'm going to read the proclamation that I read there. October is Manufacturing Month. Whereas the manufacturers of industrial goods and services in the city of Fairfield have played a major role in creating a solid foundation of commerce in the city of Fairfield for over 100 years, and whereas the men and women employed within the manufacturing workforce constitute a substantial impact on the economy and growth of this community, and the state of Iowa has more than 410 manufacturing companies and accounts for more than $33 billion in Iowa's GDP. And whereas Iowa manufacturing firms supply more than 218,000 jobs with an annual compensation of $73,000 to Iowans representing more than 14% of the state's total employment, and whereas the products and services from these firms are exported throughout the international marketplace, and these operations continue to establish an even broader base of products distribution, and whereas the citizens of Fairfield, Iowa are proud of the work ethic within this community and wish to so recognize it, and whereas the retention of growth of our manufacturing sector is a major part of our overall community economic strategy, now therefore be it resolved, I, Connie Boyer, Mayor of the City of Fairfield, Iowa, proclaim the month of October as Fairfield Manufacturers Month and salute the members of the Fairfield Manufacturers Association for their dedication to our community to provide the jobs necessary to sustain our economy and for their contributions to the quality of life of our city. And I just want to put a big stamp on that because the Manufacturers Association and all those, business owners, they so support this community. And certainly the last display of that was with our child care center. And what a great partnership, private and public, that has been. And so thank you very much to all our manufacturers. Under the Housing Task Force appointment, I do want to appoint one more, and that is Carl Metcalf, and here's the reason. It came to my attention. Josh told me that Aaron Kness was to be our finance person on there, and it turns out that Aaron cannot be there the first meeting, and Josh felt it was too important not to have somebody in the banking community, and so Carl's going to be kind of the fill-in for that meeting, but Josh felt it should be an official appointment so that he was allowed to participate in that meeting as the meeting went along. So I would appreciate if you would be okay with that and approve that.
Move to approve.
Moved by Gandy, second by Rasmussen. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. City Attorney report.
Couple things. Weston and I have been going over some nuisance situations. Weston is doing most of the work on this as far as the factual information and photography. Typical letter to somebody has a couple pages of what's wrong, and then you might have a small book as far as photographs about proof of what's wrong. We're going to change our strategy a little bit on some of these as far as what we do in court on the citations that Weston is now doing. We're going to try to have the court set these things for hearings, miniature trials on the fact that a nuisance exists. Sometimes we'll work with people for 6 months or so to see if they will step up and do it themselves. That hasn't worked very well. We've got cases that are 2 and 3 years old with continuances requested by the owners. Instead, if we have the court make the finding that the nuisance exists, which this kind of 20, 30 pages of photography is pretty good proof, it allows us to then, on a finding of nuisance, ask the court for remedies. Usually the owner, if they realize that the court isn't going to wait forever, will step up and do some things. We've had a couple of successes where we've had the court in a position after we had a trial telling them, you just got to do this, I'm going to set a date, and if you don't do it, it'll be the city doing it. So Weston is carrying the load on that. We've also got something going on right now. We got about a half a dozen mobile home parks in town. They're coming up in January for renewal of their permits. The biggest one is a topic that Weston wants to get into as far as some things that have sort of gone to pot out west in leisure living estates. Not to take anything away from leisure living estates usually being decently maintained, but the pandemic, it left some people abandoning everything. And there are probably 10 sites out there that could be a project all by themselves. We're going to have a meeting with the owner of the park and we'll see what we can accomplish there. But on a smaller scale, we'll be doing that with some other places around town too. And then a different topic, one of the members of the Board of Supervisors approached me. They want me to communicate with the county attorney and start a dialogue between the board and the council about getting a 28E put together on the old law center. There's rumors floating around that somehow the city wants to kick the public health nurse out of the old law center. That's not something that has originated here, in my opinion. I think it's somebody wanting to stir things up. There have been some of those rumors before, and I think if we have that dialogue, I think the Board of Supervisors is ready to talk about allocating, as we've done a long time ago, the shared expenses over there, the shared space. It's still good space, and nobody's trying to kick anybody out, to my knowledge. So that's something we may want to assign to our property committee in the next month or two, or talk about at our workshop. I think you got a ton of stuff on the workshop already. Another thing, I continued to do a little research, and I'm finding that about every other week I've got somebody dropping in for a short conversation about what are we doing about the people that are wandering around town with bicycle trailers and dumpster diving and living in hallways. And I've had 2 merchants with restaurants that wondered, do we have a law that says they can't come in and just sit there for 3 or 4 hours at a time? And it's kind of bad news, because we really don't have a law, and we really, unfortunately, about 30 years ago, actually 50 years ago in some cases, but 30 years ago, the Iowa Supreme Court jumped in with the U.S. Supreme Court and said you can't discriminate against people on the basis of their economic status. So if you're a poor enough person that you would qualify under the old vagrancy ordinance that we used to have, our old vagrancy ordinance would have been based on their economic status, prohibiting them from walking the streets or being present at certain places and so forth would be unconstitutional. And so we've got to come up with some other way of approaching what's going on with this situation. I'm going to be at the Greater Jefferson County Community Foundation meeting in mid-November. I want them to take another look at filling a bigger pot for last resort situations in the community. The Ministerial Association has sort of thrown up their hands about people knocking on the back door. They used to do motel passes for a day or two. They used to do meal tickets and things like that. There really isn't that happening right now. And the doing things that keep people from going hungry and so forth is the affirmative side of this thing. The way the courts have ruled on things like vagrancy ordinances, loitering ordinances, lack of visible means of support was actually an ordinance at one time. Those kinds of things, we don't have a good solution as far as ordinancing anymore. So that's something I think we probably will have a couple people ask to come and say a word or two at our work session about concerns that are still going on uptown about this. And some of you have probably run into some of the same people I have that have the difficulties as far as just deciding that they're going to get by on redemption of cans and things like that. And we can't tell a person how they're supposed to maintain themselves exactly, but we can try to make things more of an opportunity to get away from that lifestyle. And that's about all that I can see. But anyway, I'm going to probably, by the time we get to the workshop session, if we've got a few minutes on this, I'll try to get some materials together for you to look at what we can and can't do.
Great. So John, you may know this, there is a gentleman in the community that is researching this. He's been talking to a lot of the ministers. Mm-hmm. He's been reaching out to some other resources in the state about, what resources there are. And so at some point, I think when he feels at a point that's appropriate, we should have him come and, share what he knows.
Right. That would help.
And I can talk to you about that too, because I don't know if he's talked to you or not. So
I've had a call from, I think I know who you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you. Committee and board reports, Ways and Means. Well, we kind of handled one thing, so.
Right. So we had a couple of meetings with Calvin Todd at Park and Rec to discuss the United Healthcare proposal. So what United Healthcare is doing is they sell a policy on Medicare, and they'll have a club benefit or I guess a club benefit is the best way to explain it, and they'll pay a certain amount of money toward their attending a health club of some kind. Park and Rec could qualify. So the Park and Rec would have to adopt a program, and then the people who have purchased the policy from UHC can then go down and take advantage of the program that Park and Rec has adopted, if they do. So the two options that UHC offered the city were they would pay us $20 per month per member, and they would have to come at least one time each month in order for us to collect that money. And they offered a 1 or 2 year contract with that, with a bonus of, I think, $3,000 for a 1 year contract and $7,000 for a 2 year contract. The other option was they would pay $5 per visit up to 5 visits. So if someone came in 5 times, that would be $25, and that would be what the normal membership is for either the pool side or the recreational side. And if they came in only once or twice, they would still be paying $5 a day, which is our daily rate. So with that option, the city would always break even in terms of cost of coming in to use the facility or buying a month-long membership. The only question there was whether we wanted to offer or take a 1 year or a 2 year plan. So we talked about this, and we were going to recommend the council to take the 1 year plan, with the $3,000 signing bonus and prohibit anybody else from coming in for 6 months, so Calvin and his people could gauge how it's working for them and work out any problems they might have.
When you say prohibit anybody else from coming in for 6 months, do you mean any other?
We wouldn't adopt any other health, like Silver Sneakers, for example. WellCare, Wellmark offers a program called Silver Sneakers. We haven't talked to them. I have no idea if they would even approach us, but we just thought to make it clean for Calvin and his people to just work with this one program now and see how it goes. They may decide that they don't like it and ask us not to renew it, in which case we probably wouldn't take a second or a third insurance company.
So we could gauge whether or not there's we could be able to gauge whether or not there's any additional administrative
right, and see how much work it is with them. One of the problems with this program with UHC is that you get a tag like any of our members would get. You scan in on their machine. They have their own computer that will have to be placed at Park and Rec, but it doesn't take a picture. Our program that we have down there takes a picture so they can see that the right person is using the card, and we actually know who's in the building, who's not in the building. So the way we're going to get around that is Calvin would issue 2 tags, and they would have to scan twice, once into our system, verify who the person is, and then scan into the UHC's system to get credit for the attendance and payback. So from a cash flow point of view, it's break even. From a management point of view in terms of time management and how much distraction it will create for our employees, that's yet to be determined. So I don't think we'll get 100 people, but who knows what will happen. We suspect that a lot of people who are, well, actually, maybe not, because people who are already members, and there's no benefit for them switching over. Well, no, I guess they can benefit the $25, so we expect some people to switch over from already paying for their membership and switching over to the free membership from UHC. So I don't know how many new people we'll get, but we're going to find out, I guess.
Is this a membership to one side or the other? Do they have a choice, or is it just?
Yeah, it'll be one side or the other.
And they have a choice of which one they want to join?
Right.
Okay.
Does Calvin have any idea in our current membership how many meet the demographic that this would apply to?
No.
No? Okay.
I mean, UHC told us, how many did they?
Couple hundred people.
A couple hundred people that they.
In our community?
Yeah.
That they ensure that might.
Yeah, we're in the re-upping phase right now, the renewal phase. So, this is a marketing tool that they'll use, and who knows how many they'll get. I doubt if it'll move too much, but probably a couple hundred people could be eligible. I've had 3 people talk to me personally about it.
We've gotten lots of emails about it.
So
what is the committee recommending out of the 2 options?
That we do the $5 per visit arrangement and a 1-year contract. And have them, I don't know how quickly they can get it in here, but have them bring it in, set it up. We'll give it a trial for 6 months before we let any other company come in and do the same thing.
Is it really necessary to prohibit other companies from coming in, though? That seems, I don't know, that seems a little.
I don't know.
Like, some people can do it, but then others are not able to, you know?
Right.
Like, I understand not wanting to burden the rec center, but I'm wondering if that's really necessary.
Could Walmart come back on this if they wanted to come in?
Probably.
Okay. That was a simple
We're not
answer.
saying they can't come in ever. We're just saying
For 6 months.
give us a few months. I mean, 3 new computer screens, 3 new check-ins.
I think it'd be poor PR on their part.
Okay.
Pushed it in such a short period of time. I mean, people do have test periods.
I just didn't want these people overwhelmed. That's why we
Yeah,
kind of
okay.
figured that.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
All right, I'll make the motion that we adopt the United Healthcare plan.
Can I ask one more question real quick?
No, I'm
do we
making
know
no
the
motion.
numbers? Do we know the numbers of how many people use it less than 4 or 5 times a month? the majority, the numbers of the members that we currently have, not just in this demographic, but total?
No, that never came up. Although Calvin does think that most of the people who take advantage of this plan will want to use the pool side.
And at least once a week?
Well, with the $5 per visit, it doesn't matter how many times they come.
Well, it does if we do the $20 encompassing.
Yeah, that's a gamble. The $5 per visit was a guarantee that we're going to break even.
But they've got to use it at least 5 times for us to make more on it than
if
we
they
do on
used
the
it
20 side.
6 times, we would still get $25 from the insurance company.
Right, but
which is the
they
monthly.
have to use it at least 5 times for us to get 25. We're going to get 20 on the other one, no matter if they use it once or 30 times.
Right. It's a gamble.
The problem is we don't have any idea how many people are going to use it. We don't know how many. I mean, yeah, they say, well, there's 300 or 400 people in this area that would qualify. Well, but that doesn't mean we're going to have 3 or 400.
No,
you know, so we just don't have any clue.
And they have to use it for us to get. But I'm just wondering if the membership we have now, and I'm not including this demographic or anything, just the total membership we have now. Do the majority do at least half of them use it more than 3 or 4 times a month?
Well, I would think so.
I would think so,
Serious
too.
about having a membership, typically are active and proactive in using the facility.
Okay.
But I can't promise you anything. I mean, I don't know.
I was just curious if we knew that or not.
I don't know if Calvin
Okay.
even has those numbers.
Okay.
If we do the 1 year, can we switch, if we look at a second year down the road, can we switch which plan we have? Or would
Well, we would need to renew, and I don't know if I doubt they'd give us a signing bonus for the second year. if we
Not the
renew.
signing bonus, but could we go to the other plan if we find that it is highly used?
I imagine both of them will be available, yeah.
Okay.
But according to Calvin, these plans kind of are fluid, and so they'll look at their own return and, make changes to their benefit, not to ours.
Well, of course.
So next year they could offer us something completely different, which is one of the problems with these plans is that you're constantly looking at whether it's going to be worthwhile or not.
I don't think it's there to be profitable. I think it's there to make us.
I mean, they're only offering us 2
More
years max.
user-friendly.
If it works and we like it, then we should try and get a 5-year deal and not worry about it for 5 years.
Till we're all off the council.
Well, certainly they're trying to save on
Yeah.
expenses.
On expenses.
As healthier people
Yeah.
have less expenses and general.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you want to remake your motion? Please.
Chance to make it. So I'll make the motion that we adopt the United Healthcare plan at $5 per visit reimbursement of up to 5 visits per month with a 1-year contract.
Second.
Okay, second by Gandy. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Yep, got you here too. All right, thank you very much. Administrator and department reports. You want Melanie to go first?
While she's walking up, the only
Okay.
thing I have is, as we've done in the past, on Wednesday, November 23rd, before Thanksgiving, the city offices have closed at noon. We are going to plan on doing that again, so just a heads up that the city office will be closed at noon on the 23rd, the day before Thanksgiving.
And you're reopen on Friday? Or you're,
That's a holiday
You're
for us.
closed.
That's
Oh,
that's
okay.
closed on. So those are the 2 holidays for us.
okay.
Is there a motion?
No.
Just, all right, tell them what it is. All right, project update. If you haven't been down East Burlington, you haven't seen the new swimming pool on Morgan Street. That project started a couple weeks ago, and just this last week, they got all the concrete torn out. Just in time for all of the rain we got today. But they will continue to work on that project. In a few days, they'll likely have equipment out there trying to dry it up as best possible so they can continue to work on that.
Melanie, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Is Morgan Street what is now piled a mile high at the Ball Diamond?
Yes.
That was kind of cool to watch that.
Yes, so when they removed the concrete, the subcontractor has a machine that crushes and crushes and sorts the rock and then also removes the rebar. And so basically it's recycling the street to be used as the rock underneath the new pavement, which is awesome. Not, it'd be something I would love to say as a standard practice for the city of Fairfield, but not many companies have that equipment. So it's great to be able to do it on a project here.
It's very loud too.
Yes.
Very loud.
Yes, which is why we did it at the ball fields rather than on the street itself. It's loud and probably shakes a little bit. On the Crow Creek Bridge replacement, just letting you know how awesome and versatile your city engineer is. I did a bat habitat assessment earlier this month, checking out the bridge to make sure there weren't any bats roosting in the cracks and crevices of the existing bridge.
Are there?
There are none, so.
Oh, you make me happy since I walk underneath that bridge. I'm glad to know.
And what they're looking for is particularly like a trestle bridge. There's lots of places for bats to hang out, or if there was a really deep crack in part of the bridge, bats can nest in there. So that had to be done in order to complete the environmental review. So we're still working on getting all of that cleared so that we can do work. Bid the project a year from now. Great news on Highway 1. We had a phone call last week with the regional DOT office, and we were told that we would be awarded funds from the curb ramp program and the U-Step program. So we're eligible for up to approximately $40,000 with the curb ramp program and $400,000 with the U-Step grant. So that's looking at taking a big chunk of that shortfall that we've talked about many times on this project. Really thankful for the DOT for those funds, and the actual amounts will be finalized once we have a funding agreement in front of you, but they kind of told us unofficially on the phone that we will be seeing that, so that is great. Other than that, we continue on design and working towards getting everyone's reviews so that project can go to bid in February. The Highway 1 water main replacement, there has not been any work over the last 2 weeks. The contractor had a vacation scheduled, but he is back and working on wrapping up that project. Poured concrete this morning, and we'll be working on services from Madison to Adams over the next few days. I feel like I have one more, but I guess that's it. Yeah, we talked about the fire stations at the last meeting, so that is all.
Great. Any questions for Melanie? If not,
thanks.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Toohill.
Second.
Second by Anderson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Thanks for being on the phone, Judy.